Hello everyone, I am the Critical Bookworm, and this is an adaptation review of the first episode of House of the Dragon, HBO's first Game of Thrones spin-off show. Just as Game of Thrones was an adaptation of George R.R. Martin's series A Song of Ice and Fire, House of the Dragon is an adaptation of Martin's prequel book, Fire and Blood. The plan is to do one of these reviews per episode, and then after the final episode of the season, I will summarize my thoughts on the entire season in an 11th video. So, how did the Heirs of the Dragon measure up to its source material? Let's find out. But first, there is one thing that I want to make clear. Unlike most books, the story of Fire and Blood is narrated by a maester who records the events of the book according to multiple and conflicting sources. Furthermore, Fire and Blood moves fairly quickly and isn't very detailed. The whole plot of episode 1 consists of less than 20 pages of book material. Due to this, and due to the fact that Martin is heavily involved with the making of this show, I am going to be more lenient than I would be otherwise. I'm only going to consider events as being original to the show only if they directly contradict the material in the book. So, even though I'm not even the biggest fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, I prefer The Lord of the Rings. I'll try to give House of the Dragon some slack. This is your spoiler warning for House of the Dragon, Episode 1, The Heirs of the Dragon. Let's go. It's not a good sign for the show that right away there are some admittedly small inconsistencies with the book. For example, King Heirs actually had a third son, Prince Vagon, who was alive and well in 101 AC. The thing was, Vagon was an archmaester, and he didn't really want the crown. In fact, the Great Council that Heirs calls in the show was Vagon's idea in the book. Furthermore, Princess Rhaenys was dismissed as a potential heir early on. The two main candidates for the crown in the book were Viserys Targaryen and Laenor Velaryon, who was Rhaenys' son. Still, these changes are fairly inconsequential and shouldn't have much impact on the plot as long as Laenor is introduced soon. Properly, I mean. He was actually in one shot of the episode. Rhaenyra being her father's cupbearer is a nice little detail I'm glad the writers included. And the triarchy being mentioned early is nice foreshadowing considering they become a much bigger deal later. As for Daemon, him being a brutal leader of the City Watch and the man who whipped them into shape is accurate, as is him being less than fond of his wife. King's Hand Otto Hightower's dislike of Daemon is also accurate. King Viserys having a soft spot for Daemon and in general being easygoing is, once again, accurate. He's basically supposed to be another version of King Robert from the main book and TV series. At the very least, he should continue to fulfill that role. The tournament in which Criston Cole is introduced originally took place to honor Viserys' ascension to the throne, not the planned birth of his son. And although Daemon didn't beat up Otto's son in the book, it is something he would totally do, so I'll allow it. Criston Cole beating up Daemon is in the book, however. Now, about that sequence, it's not what happens in the book. Queen Aemma simply dies in childbirth, with her son dying soon after. Also, it directly goes against the character of King Viserys, who could never have made that choice at all in the book. everybody's already talked to death about this scene, so here's my quick 2 cents from an adaptation perspective. This is actually a really bad sign for the show. Emphasizing shock value over logical story beats is pretty much what sealed the fate of Game of Thrones itself as it moved past its own adaptation material. The indication that House of the Dragon creator Ryan Condal learned nothing from the crashing and burning of Game of Thrones does not bode well for this show's future or quality. There, rant over, moving on. Although Otto sending Alicent to try and cheer up Viserys isn't in the book, I will count it as something that could have happened. Daemon's drunken jape about the heir for a day is accurate, as is Viserys hearing about it and getting as angry as he ever did. While we're at it, the Iron Throne is better than it was in Game of Thrones, but it's still nowhere as big and impressive as it is in the books. Daemon wasn't actually kicked out of King's Landing, however. He left himself of his own free will after Viserys named Rhaenyra as his heir, and he went to Dragonstone. Where Daemon goes in the show, we will have to see. Finally, Aegon's dream of a threat to Westeros wasn't stated in the book, but once again, it does fall under the list of changes that could be canon. In sum, House of the Dragon starts out decently enough. Although a few things have been embellished or changed, for the most part, so far, the plot of the show is following the plot of the book. But I guess we'll see how long that lasts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.